Okay, so before we actually kind of get started on our topic of mic control tonight, any questions or any suggestions, comments people want to bring up?
Well, since you mentioned the recordings, all these meetings are recorded, and I have created a YouTube page under Northern Nevada Beekeeping, and the videos are uploaded to that. And we'll work on adding that link to our main site as well, to our page as well. Then we can, our web page, and members can view it from that option as well.
You are the best guy to have as our media guy. Fabulous. All right. Oh, I see Ginger posting somebody there. Yes, so actually in our September newsletter, I put in a picture of the Bees for Vets apiary out at the University Extension Dairy area, just south of the river there off of McCarran, I believe it is. So that was a great time. I got to go out there and meet some of the vets out there. And I
Thank
see
you, Jim.
Oh, sure. And I see Steve just got on. Thanks so much, Steve, for sending your info on that solar wax melter. That was great. I think, like I said in my little note there, that I don't go to quite that much effort to build one. I kind of just use what I have and kind of put it together. But I'm getting all kinds of what I call hockey pucks right now of melted wax.
Right. Yep. Good stuff.
So I got to figure out what to do with them. The ones that come out the clearest, actually, I get the clearest wax out of my my cappings.
Oh yeah, that's the best.
Yeah. So I call that my pharmaceutical grade, and I use that. Yeah, exactly. Pharmaceutical grade. It's great stuff. I use that to make my my lotion and cream.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I have a question about wasp. I have a ton of wasp right now and ants. What does everybody do to deter that?
I walk around with a fly swatter. That is kind of my personal vendetta, you know, against those wasps. If I can get 3 or 4 in one outing, I feel good about that. Otherwise, I have some wasp traps that have the wasp attractant that goes into it, a little I don't know, cotton ball that you soak in that stuff and you set it in there.
I have 5 of those sitting out, and I killed over 30 wasps when I was in my hive on Saturday.
Good grief.
Oh, they were in the hive?
Not in the hive, just around the hive.
Around the hive, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how about for ants? I've heard bad things about diatomaceous earth around hives. Is that bad?
Okay, I have not heard anything bad about diatomaceous earth.
I have used diatomaceous earth around mine, and the ants they're non-existent most of the time.
The only thing it can cause you problems with is if your bees get in it, it'll kill your bees too. But since your bees shouldn't be crawling around on the ground under the hive.
Yeah, and my hives are elevated on cinder blocks too, so any of the bees that are usually on the ground are on their way out anyway, so I haven't had a problem with that.
Very good.
I just also posted a link to a YouTube video on a way to poison wasps that won't poison your bees.
Oh, okay. I see it down there. Yep. Great.
Your best defense against wasps and ants are a strong hive. Make sure that your population is strong. And then your other, if they're not strong, then reduce the entrance. All these other things are just kind of side measures. Ants and wasps all have a purpose, and they do a particular job, and so we need them. But the only time I've ever had problems with ants or wasps is when I've had a hive that was struggling and about to die. So if you're having problems with them actually getting into the hive, then there's a problem with that hive that you need to resolve. That's my 2 cents.
I walked past one of my hives today and I saw a ball of bees on the ground, just, rolling around. And I kind of stuck the end of my fly swatter into it a little bit. And inside was a wasp. So there must have been 8 or 9 bees on this wasp. I don't know whether it had tried to come into the hive and they just jumped it. And basically they were taking it out. They ball it and suffocate it.
Yeah, I see that regularly when I go out there. There's bees always all over, balled up over wasp. I haven't found any in the hive. So they're doing a good job. I put the entrance reducer on just to help them out, protecting it. So hopefully that'll help.
Good, yeah, because this is the time of year when there are lots and lots of wasp out there. Oh, and Stefan, what are you showing here?
So this is what it looks like when a wasp tries to get into a hive, which is that same balling that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So they will ball them up. This was on an October day that's about 40 degrees, and that ball was almost 100 degrees on the outside. And it's not a big ball. I mean, if you look at the image a little bit farther away. So and I saw that regularly, the same thing you're talking about. So the bees can resolve the issues. There's with a thermal camera, that same ball.
Wow, it's white hot.
Yeah. So, like I said, the bees aren't going to allow wasps to be a problem. So if they're not strong, and if you were to open your hive and you were to see wasps inside the hive, then you would have a problem. Or if you saw wasps going in without being pushed out by the bees, you would see a problem.
Okay. So, yep, I think wasps are a bigger problem at this time of year than ants are. All right. I like the idea of just extracting honey right during the middle of a meeting here. It's great. Something you can't do when you go to the library there. All right. Well, then I think maybe we should go ahead and get started on our main topic today.
Sorry, can I just say one more thing for the wasp topic?
Sure.
So I felt like this year was a bad wasp year, and in spring, that's when the queen wasp starts laying her eggs. So when you want to have little wasps in your area, you like put out a lot of traps in March and April when actually wasp queens multiply. So that's another control to put up traps early in spring to not have a bad wasp year in the first place. So I didn't do it this year, and we had a lot of wasps too.
Okay, yeah, I got my traps out in March and April there. It's also interesting that the wasp can come out when it's colder and they'll stay out longer than the bees. So they'll be out kind of scavenging around the hives early in the morning and then later in the evening as the bees have gone in. And Stefan's right, they are part of the ecosystem and they carry off, some of the dead bees. So you don't have them laying around. Though I've got, I guess, plenty of birds that come by and
Oh,
some
yeah.
ground squirrels that like to chew them up too. Okay, well then I think we got to go ahead and start on our main topic tonight. So, Mark, I guess I was going to share my screen, and is that going to just take everybody off for a second, or?
No, go ahead and share and they'll be able to see it.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I guess this is select the window screen. Zoom. Here we go. Okay, so a couple of months ago, I think it was in the August newsletter, we put in a link to the Honeybee Health Coalition. So that's where I am right now on their website, honeybeehealthcoalition.org, and the Varroa Bee Club program, which I thought was great because they actually offer a program to share with a club in talking about the Varroa mites. And so I've actually downloaded the presentation, and it has several different let's see. So I guess I'm just going to kind of keep all this open. Is this screen in the middle here big enough for everybody?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
it is for me. Yeah.
good. So you can see I'm starting on slide 11 because a lot of this stuff previously was, you know, just resources. It talked about the honeybee.
Right, Jim, we're not able to see that presentation. We can only see
okay.
You only shared your web page screen. So you'll have to stop that
Okay.
share and start another one with the presentation.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, I will just go through this web page stuff. So, Varroa mite, basically, there it is. I've heard it described that if the Varroa mite was proportional size on a human body, it'd be the size of a basketball. So it'd be like a large, I don't know, disc up against our body, sucking our fat bodies right. It goes right through the skin, so to speak, and that's what causes the diseases. So that's why we've got to be so careful about that. Okay, true or false? Every honeybee colony is going to have Varroa mites.
True.
It is true. So doing nothing is not a practical option. I like this, and here is, you know, your mite percentage. If you do nothing, pretty soon your hive is going to die. In fact, they're saying once you get over 3 to 4%, it can lead to your hive death. So I also know that Randy Oliver has a great Excel spreadsheet where you do your mite count and you put in the numbers, and then you can put in different means of control, and he already estimates how effective those are in controlling your mites. And you'll see on the spreadsheet that once you apply that control, it drops back down. And the thing is, you want to keep this curve. When it starts going up, you want to treat, and that'll drop down, and it'll start going back up again. And you want to keep it low. Okay, successful Varroa control is proactive.
Jim, I'm not seeing any presentation. I'm still just seeing the basic, the introductory slide.
Uh-oh.
Me too.
Ay, ay, ay. Okay. I guess I'm not real good at this.
You're doing great.
Oh, yeah, okay. So you're just seeing the original one then, huh?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Says download the presentation by clicking here, watch a recording, download a recording.
Yeah, all right. So that isn't what you guys want to see. You actually want to see the presentation that I'm looking at.
That'd be cool.
You are screen sharing. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and go back and figure out how to do this again. All right. So I'm going to actually, maybe that was it. I need to start on this one. Okay, let's see how this works. And where's my share screen? Still not sharing what I want. Oh, maybe this is it. Okay, now can you guys see successful Aurora Controls Proactive?
Oh, yes, very good.
Okay, all right. So, and now do you see the graph?
Yeah, true.
Yes.
Okay, good. So this graph, and when I was talking about Randy Oliver having a site where he has an Excel spreadsheet where you can put in your current mite check, you know, when you do either an alcohol wash or a powdered sugar wash, put in the percentage you find, and then it will show how fast the mites will grow. And then there'll be a little bar to show you when to treat again. And then you can put in what you're going to treat with, whether it's, you know, Hopguard or Apivar or oxalic acid or formic acid. And he has how effective those are. And then you'll see that graph drop down when you say you're going to apply it, and then they'll start growing again. So we want to keep that graph down here in the 1 or 2% area. So whenever it starts to go up, we have to treat. Okay, so population phases of honeybee varroa mite. Okay, so this is our timeline, basically dormant, you know, coming out of winter, where the queens are going to start laying. You reach your population peak. We've already reached our population peak. I imagine that was mid-July, maybe end of July. And August, it started going down. The population is pretty much driven by the availability of pollen and nectar. And of course, after the springtime flow, that drops off unless you live in town with lots and lots of great plants around. But you can see the mite population, which is in the orange, it's steadily rising. And then right here, as your bee population is really low, mites actually almost outnumber bees. Well, they don't quite outnumber them, but relatively. So you want to keep that mite population down so it doesn't affect your bees, because if you go into winter, right here, this is kind of our fall, October, right under this population decrease, you're going to lose your hive over the winter. You know, it's almost a given that that'll happen with that load of mites. Okay, so this is really important right here. What percentage is considered potentially harmful? And so you can see it's greater than 2 or 3%. So we've got to be real careful, and that's why it's great to do a mite check. I know that Stefan has demonstrated, you know, his mite check system a couple times, and gosh, I guess last year when we were actually having meetings there at the library, he gave out some small pieces of screen that people could use to make their own mite check jars. Okay, and why is it important to sample? It lets you know what, you know, your percentage of mite population is in there, and allows you to select appropriate control. So integrated pest management, I think we all agree that that's really the best way to go. We don't want to just get in and treat our hives every single time with chemicals. You know, we'd like to use some other, you know, less intrusive ways. I like the oxalic acid drip. You can use that when there's honey on there. There's also the oxalic acid vapor. I know that Deborah Quackenbush has the wand and the heater that will actually vaporize the oxalic acid, and that's quite effective. It's actually more effective than doing the dribble. And then you get into other processes, hop guard, that's made out of hops. That's kind of a natural one. And then there are some more tougher chemical ones. So it's kind of hard for me to read all of these. The bottom says cultural, good sanitation, habitat modification, and resistant stock. And the physical mechanical, that includes putting in drone brood frames and then taking them out. Screen bottom boards. So I like to use screen bottom boards a lot. That also gives me a chance to see what my mite drop is down below. Okay, predators and parasites. We haven't quite got there. It talks about nematodes with research currently being used for hive beetle control. Well, we don't have hive beetles here in Nevada because they actually overwinter in the ground, and up here they freeze. Here it says chemical, biorational pesticides like formic acid and essential oils, menthol, thymol. And then up here, conventional pesticides. These are the ones we don't really want to try and use. Amitraz, fumagillin, a couple of the other ones, terramycin, you know, we usually don't have to worry about. I think that's mainly used in American foul brood. But it also says it's for controlling varroa.
Jim,
Yes.
another technique that I've been reading about is kind of a natural technique, interrupting the breeding cycle by removing the queen and allowing the mites really to not be able to catch up. That they won't have any larvae to work on if the queen is removed and the bees are making a new queen from a larva. You know, in the meantime, the mites will outbreed themselves. They won't have a host and they'll die off that way.
Very true. So that is great if you're not worried about honey production or, you know, getting a strong hive, because when the queen stops laying, of course, you know, you go through a brood break of probably
That's
20.
what I'm trying to say. Brood break. That's the word I was looking for. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, of about 20 days, and you know, in late spring, right as the the nectar flow is at its max, that queen's laying, 2,000 eggs a day,
Right.
and 2,000 eggs times 20 days, that's 40,000 bees that are not going to be born in your hive.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a natural method of controlling Varroa. And, if you really had a hard time and you want it to be totally chemical free, even to the point of, essential oils like the menthol or the thymol, or, you didn't want to use formic acid. Brood break is good. Also the drone brood, getting a couple of the drone frames where they're usually plastic and the cells imprint on the back is much larger. And so the bees then naturally build a larger comb structure, which is for the drones. In that respect, then once it's capped with drones, you pull the whole frame out and you freeze it. Basically, you kill the whole frame. I don't like that method much easier just because it takes so many resources from the bees, to build the cells, the specialized cells for the drones. The queen, has to lay all those. They've got to feed them all. And then you're just getting rid of that whole thing. So I'm more of doing my mite sampling, and when it starts to get up to a point where it's over 1 or 2%, using my oxalic acid or the oxalic acid shop towels.
Oh, yeah.
I like using those and just adding strips in. And then I'm getting ready to start formic acid next week, because you can't use formic acid when it's above 90 degrees. And we're finally getting to some days where the highs are just in the 80s now. For a while there, 92, 93, 98. The formic acid will end up killing a lot of the bees when it gets that hot. So you can also use formic acid when you still have honey on. I probably only have, 4 or 5 frames left that I want to harvest, because I've already started going through my hives and making notes about what I want to do for winterization. So next month is all about winterization, but you should be thinking about it right now. So mite control is part of your winterization. And the other big thing is possibly moving around some frames. So you're going to want to have your honey above your brood chamber. And I try to get down to just the 2 boxes. So the bees should be in the lower box where their heat goes up and warms the honey that's above them, so that during the winter, they slowly move up into the upper box as they're eating the honey above them. So then I'll also move some empty frames that are on the sides. And if I have to combine any bees, I'll be consolidating honey frames into those sides that I take ones out that are not quite filled. Okay, let me keep going here. Sampling methods recommended. Okay, great. So here we have the 2 processes, and when I mentioned that that Stefan had loaned it or given out some screen, the screen goes in between the 2 jars. So the best way is to go into your hive, go into the brood area and shake a frame of nurse bees into a plastic tub. the foragers will fly away. The nurse bees are really the ones that are going to have the mites on them because they're working so closely with the larva that's right there, and they're not out flying around where mites will drop off. So you want to use nurse bees for your sample. You want to get a half a cup of bees in a jar, and then you want to pour in your alcohol, or if you don't want to use alcohol, you can use powdered sugar. Powdered sugar, you don't really kill the bees. Some of them might get, damaged in the shaking, but basically, either way, whether it's powdered sugar or alcohol, you want to shake it for about a minute, and that kind of coats the bees with either the sugar or the alcohol and gets those varroa mites to drop off of them. And then you can see here on the powdered sugar one, they have a piece of white paper. Then you can shake it out, and the mites and the powdered sugar will fall through, and then you count your mites. So in a half a cup of bees, you have approximately 300 bees. And so if you find 3 mites in the sample, you have a 1% population. If you find 6 mites, it's 2%. 9 mites, it's 3%. So let me go back up to that percentage chart here. And you can see that 2 or 3% is basically your limit where you want to apply some mite control. All right, so is everybody kind of clear on how to do a sample? Okay, I'm not hearing any yay or nay.
Yay.
Yes.
Yay, okay. All right. And it's true that mite densities will vary across your colony. So your different hives, you might have some bees that are a little more hygienic, and they take care of those mites and groom them off a little better than others. But if they're all in the same apiary, I'm going to go ahead and give the answer here right away. Yes, you should treat them all at the same time, because I think this is kind of cool. Otherwise, the colony with the high numbers is going to act as a mite bomb. So if you're talking on the phone with somebody, I know our government records this, and every time you say bomb, they're recording that. So let's call each other and say mite bombs.
Mite bomb.
Control your mite bombs. It's like, all right, I'm a little bit of a radical at times. But anyway, so yeah, all colonies should be treated. So when I'm mixing up my oxalic acid, I use the formula that's in Randy Oliver's scientific beekeeping page. And oh gosh, I don't know, I think it's a 3% or something. But anyway, I have a little food scale, and I weigh out my oxalic acid, which I get from wood bleach. I just go down to Home Depot and I buy a pint of wood bleach, and it's probably a 98% pure oxalic acid. I know that you can get a food grade oxalic acid off the internet, but it's quite a bit more expensive, and I don't think the mites really care whether it's food grade or not. The method that the oxalic acid works on is it coats the tarsal pads of the mites, and it doesn't allow them to stick to the bees. And
I never knew that.
And yeah, and they end up dying. It's absorbed through that tarsal pad. And since the bees don't really have a similar pad that the mites do, the bees aren't affected by it. If you put too much in there, yes, it'll affect them, just like too much of anything. And of course, you should always wear latex gloves, you know, rubber gloves when you're doing it. And the same with the formic acid. In fact, the formic acid, when I pull those out of the bag, I really have to hold my breath and act quickly to get it into the hive. And then I feel sorry for the bees for a couple days, because that formic acid vapor that comes off of that is really pretty noxious.
Which one of the strips is the formic acid? You just okay.
Here we go. Mite-Away quick
Okay,
strips,
quick strips. Okay, right.
formic acid. And basically it's a pouch that's about 6 inches long and 2-3 inches wide, with kind of a gel paste inside. And when you open that plastic coating around it, it immediately just puts off a really obnoxious formic acid vapor. And so, like I say, you want to hold your breath, and because it'll burn your lungs coming in. Okay, here's the HopGuard. I've not used HopGuard before. I've used Apivar, which is, as I kind of consider, you know, one of the heavy chemicals. It's not like the oxalic acid or the formic acid or the HopGuard. Thymol is kind of in between. The Apiguard, even though it is an essential oil, it is a little more noxious than the formic acid or the oxalic acid. And then also, like I say, the screen bottom boards, I try to get those on pretty much all of my hives that I can until I run out of them. And then, of course, then I have to go with just a regular wood bottom board. And most of these screen bottom boards, they have an inspection tray or inspection sheet that slides underneath. And I like that a lot, not just because I can see the mites that drop off, but I can see where the bees are working, you know, actually which frame they're working on. You can pull out an inspection tray and you can see the lines of the frames that are right above that area, and you can see which frames the bees are working. Because a lot of times I'll put an older frame, like when I finish extracting, I like to put the spun out comb back in and let them clean it. And of course they're chewing off the little bits of wax that are hanging on there, and you can see how well they're cleaning it. And then after a week, the comb is just beautiful. There's not a trace of honey on it. And I pull it out and I put it into a black plastic bag, you know, 8 or 10 of them in there, toss in some mothballs, and set it in the garage for the winter. And then springtime, you bring them out, air them out for a few days, and they're ready to go. If you catch a swarm, they already have drawn out comb, and they love it. They just jump right in.
So Jim, you put the wet supers, as it were, back directly on the hives as if you were putting supers on in the spring.
Okay, so yes and no. If I just have a few, I'll set them out at the side of the yard.
Okay.
So that they could go rob it. But
Yeah.
if I have a whole box that I just finished, I'll just go out and pull my telescoping cover, pull the inner cover, get that box on there. I usually bring it out of the house at the last minute. You know, you don't want to spend more than 3 minutes with a box of, you know, honey laden, you know, spin out frames, because every bee in the yard will be over there right away.
Sure, sure.
In fact, I I have my extractor set up in my kitchen and I leave my window open and, you know, I'll have 10 or 15 bees bouncing against the screen trying to come in. You know, they can smell it right inside.
Sure.
So, yeah, if I have enough, I'll put those back onto a box.
Jim,
Yes.
you might want to also mention you got to be careful with the mothballs. So they use 2 different chemicals to deter mites, and one of them is well, basically what they use in paramoth, and it's the paracycla something another. That one's safe for bees. There's one that starts with an N, and if you use that one, you need to let your comb air out for about a week or 2, and even then it still might kill your bees.
That's naphtha.
Yeah, that stuff is very, 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 very toxic to
Yeah,
bees.
toxic to bees. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. So you're right. I didn't mention that I always use the para one. I didn't know exactly what the name was, but as long as it has para in the name, that's the mothball to use for overwinter. And then, like I say, I still let them air out for a little while. And then I do check them about every couple weeks because if you get mice, they're going to chew right through that plastic bag and get in there and just pretty much destroy your spun out comb that looks so beautiful and, you know, would have been a great start in the springtime. Yeah, so that's another thing you have to watch out for. So if you can actually get them into one of the large Tupperware or plastic boxes with a good tight lid, that will, you know, keep mice from getting into them. Okay. So Honeybee Health Coalition, it's a great website. I think I'm almost done here.
All right, Jim, before you move on, there was a question asking about Apivar.
Okay, yep.
I want to know that says, please discuss Apivar and using it.
Okay, I went back to Apivar here. You can see that it says it's a synthetic miticide, which means that it's a manufactured chemical. So if you're going to use Apivar, make sure you have pulled all your honey off. You do not want to use Apivar if you have any honey supers still on there that you are hoping to get some honey out of. Apivar is total end of the season or springtime before they've started setting honey. So these actually have a good seasonality type thing. The formic acid, the oxalic acid, those are good for summer, fall. The thymol, I like to use that early spring. Apivar, like I say, is a late fall when you're winterizing, or early spring to make sure that you get them knocked down before the queen starts laying 1,500 eggs a day. Does that kind of answer the question on Apivar? I'm not a big fan of Apivar just because it is, you know, more of a chemical, but it is a very potent miticide.
Jim, there's one other thing on the Apivar too. A year or 2 ago, USDA was saying that most of the mice on the bees coming out of California are now resistant to Apivar
Okay.
because it's been used so heavily down there.
Right, all the commercial guys, you know, they don't even really do the check. You know, they don't go out and do a mite wash. They'll just slap it in. So anyway, like I say, I like the formic acid. I like the oxalic acid, which isn't shown here. And Deborah's method of using the fume you know, heating it up and getting a vapor in your hive is very, very effective.
Yeah, I do that too. I use that.
Okay.
It's easy.
As long as you know what you're doing, do you use the respirator with the little,
I do. Yeah, I
okay,
have a whatever respirator that it is, you know,
right,
and the goggles and all that business. Yeah.
goggles, perfect. Yeah, because that vapor will burn your eyes and burn your lungs.
Yep.
So just, you know, letting everybody know that, you know, we have at least a couple people here in the club, and I know that Deborah does it. I forget what you charge, Deborah, for your service there, but she'll come out and bring her vaporizer, and you can stand back and not be affected by it.
Oh yeah.
She'll suit up and go in after those mites.
Yeah, Jim, it's $10 a hive. I usually recommend at least 2 or 3 treatments depending on your mite load. So I've gotten a couple of requests, and it's pretty easy peasy. Takes, you know, 10 minutes to set up, and then just go from hive to hive if you got it already ready to go. Yeah, so I use the vaporization like right now. And then if I still find, you know, I still need a hive to be treated late in the fall, I use the Apivar. And then in the spring, again, or midwinter, like January, I'll use the vapor again because I don't have to crack the hive to treat it.
Perfect. Yeah, you just go in under it. Yep. Okay. Well, great.
Yeah, I definitely recommend the full face mask because that stuff you don't want to be breathing it in. That's bad for your lungs. There's special filters. You got to make sure that you have this filter that can also do acidic organic acids. You want to make sure it's not just any filter that you get for those masks.
Great. Drywall dust.
Yeah, no, you know, you do a carbon, like I have a special filter and it does the acid, organic acids.
Okay.
I don't even think Man Lake sells the one with organic acid, which is weird. So they don't even sell the proper Vedant or Man Lake. They don't even sell the proper filter for it.
Okay. All right. I had one more slide that I brought up that I was going to share. And let me see if I can find that. Oh, no, it looks like it got lost in the, when I brought something else up, it disappeared. Oh, well, okay. So anyway, there is a lot of stuff out on the web. You know, just type in Varroa mite control, YouTube, and there's quite a few different YouTubes of showing you how to use the formic acid, how to use the oxalic acid, both vaporization or the drip method. I saw another one that showed that you can use a formic acid mixture and soak shop towels. So I'd only known about the oxalic acid shop towels that was on Randy Oliver's, but there was a YouTube that showed that you can also do it with the formic acid, and it talked about how to mix that up. But with, of course, with any acid, you have to be very, very careful, make sure that the concentrations are correct, and wear latex gloves and eye protection, because, you know, you can splash it. So, and then, of course, because it's an acid, you know, don't wear good clothes. You know, there you go. I remember somehow I was using some bleach to do something, and I ended up having an industrial laundry accident, is how I explained it to my friends. Yeah, that's like, okay. So yeah, those are just some hints about using um, the various miticides. I do recommend getting out on Randy Oliver's Scientific Beekeeping website and downloading his Excel spreadsheet, which then you can track. You will have to do a mite check, you know, either using the powdered sugar method or the alcohol method. And in fact, on that one slide, I said I saw that it could either be an alcohol or a soap method, either of which kill your bees. But it is a little more, you get a better result. The mites fall off better than with the powdered sugar. And the powdered sugar, you might only get, you know, 85%. The alcohol, you're getting 95, 98% for sure. Okay, so also that spreadsheet will tell you whether you're going to lose your hive over the winter or not. I think, well, if he doesn't have a skull and crossbones at the end of the ramp up, you know, he should. Okay, yeah. So maybe for Halloween we'll get a skull and crossbones, you know, just to remind people that they better get their mites under control before they go into winter, or they're not going to make it. All right. That's all I have to talk about on mite control. I've tried to impress how important it is. You know, it makes the difference in whether your hive makes it through winter or not. Any comments? Questions?
A lot of good information, Jim.
Okay, and there's, like I say, there's a lot more out there on the web. Scientificbeekeeping.com is Randy Oliver's. Honeybee Health Coalition, that was in, I think, the August newsletter. Okay, so let's see. Other things. Oh,
Jim?
yep.
Just some real quick things about doing mite checks. So I know a lot of people like to use a powdered sugar because they think that it's going to not kill the bees, but you will kill the bees. It's whether you slowly torture them to death or if they just die instantly. Also, you want to make sure you use 91% isopropyl alcohol when you're doing your mite wash, because it has the 100% release of the mites, whereas the 70 does not. And I know that last year I was giving away this little screen for people to use and make their own little jars, but I am checking so many hives these days that I'm lazy. And so I just went out and spent 20 bucks for a little Varroa checker. It is so much easier than doing it. I mean, this works, but this is so much easier. And for 20 bucks, you can't really, I mean, it is overpriced, but you can't really beat it. And this one I got from Man Lake, but you can find them all over. And it's just the Varroa Easy Check by Vito Pharma. Okay. All right. Any questions about mite checks? Sorry, I just want to make sure that's really covered because that's super important. Because if you don't do these correctly, you don't get an accurate wash. The other thing is you don't want to pull bees from the actual brood chamber. You want the first resource frame outside of the brood chamber.
Ah, good. Thanks. I think I actually said brood frame. Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, they
that.
used to say that, but a lot of the newer research coming out is saying that you get a more consistently accurate mite wash with the first resource frame outside of the brood chamber. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. All right. And, you know, you all saw that we decided to cancel the potluck picnic. Just because it wasn't going to be much of a potluck. It'd still be a picnic kind of, but, you know, with, we actually got together, the board got together and looked at all of the pluses and minuses. And, you know, the pluses were the socialization, seeing everybody. But minuses outweighed everything else.
Stephanie, can I ask you a quick question?
Oh, I think he might be too far from his mic. Oh, here he
No,
comes.
I got you.
There he is. Hi, Stefan.
Hey,
Hey, we're getting ready to harvest some honey this weekend, and I noticed some of your honey isn't capped.
yeah, it is fine. Give me just a second, I'll go pull a sample and I'll put the hydrometer up to the. Oh,
Refractometer.
Or refractometer.
yeah, refractometer. It's coming out at about 16, which is 2% lower than the max. So here it's good. And the just because Nevada's so dry that it's not really a problem here. And this stuff I got to get off the bees because you have 4 or 5 boxes is too many when we go through winter.
So we can extract our honey. We're in Fernley.
Yeah.
It's like 99% capped.
Oh, that's
So
fine.
You're good.
You're good.
we can go ahead and extract it and be good to
You're
go.
good.
Yeah.
All right, Stefan. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I usually try for, at least 80% cap. Sometimes I'll get maybe an inch along the bottom that isn't capped yet. But if all the rest of it is, that's good enough. Oh, one other thing to look for is if you have pollen in the midst of that, that would be a frame you want to leave for the bees for winter. And if there's scattered pollen throughout kind of the middle of it, if you're not winterizing yet, make a note of it and don't pull that, and think about moving that in closer to the center or into the box above them, because they can use that pollen as a food source during the winter also. So just try and get frames that have just the honey nectar on them. And also the pollen doesn't spin out well. Okay.
Well, I tried. That didn't work. The camera can't pick it up, but it's coming out at 15% right now. So, and that's the stuff I just pulled off the extractor. So.
Not 15. That's even lower. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that is one problem with Nevada honey, that once you get down to say a 13%, it doesn't flow very well. You've got to have one of those really hot 90+ degree days in order to extract once you get a low water content in there.
Yeah, when you get much below 15, it's really hard to uncap too. It tears the comb.
It also crystallizes quickly.
Stefan, what's too high?
He said over 18.
What's too high?
Yeah, anything above 18 will ferment.
All right. Thank you, Stefan.
You're not gonna have that.
Once you actually test it, it might be too late. At that point, just try to eat it quickly.
There you go. So Pam, does the club have a hydrometer?
No, we do not. Should I put that on my list?
Well, we can think about it for next year.
Okay.
I don't know if we need it just this year.
If the club does buy one, I wouldn't buy one from Man Lake. That's what this piece of junk is. And it was like $65, and it's not very good. They have ones that are specifically for honey, so the range is a lot smaller, so it's a little more accurate. But they look just like this. It's just they're ranged better
Not very good.
than the crap from Man Lake.
Okay.
I bought one through
one-
Amazon. This is Pam. I bought one through Amazon, but I haven't used it yet. It was about 25, and I can't attest to whether it's good or not yet, but maybe by our next meeting, I can use it and tell you.
I bought
We
one.
have one from Amazon.
Pam. I bought the same thing. I think it's between $20 and $25. It works
Yeah.
fine. It works fine. It's really easy.
Just
Okay.
look up how to calibrate it.
Yeah, I haven't, I mean, I started to read the manual. I just got it last week, so,
They're easy. You'll like it.
okay, thanks.
I have a question on Vivaldi lids for winter. Does anybody have some kind of blueprint of how to make them?
I do it the easiest and cheapest way possible. What I do, I grab a box, a honey super. I grab it on the table saw and I just cut it in half. And then I grab the wire mesh and then I lay it on it, on the bottom of that. And then I just put hamster bedding on top of that. And what I do, I drill 4 holes on the top, 2 on each side. And I have like, I bought on Amazon, it's like this 1-inch, if you've ever seen those like roofing like vent system, like those whole round ones, I buy like the 1-inch. They don't sell it at Home Depot. They only sell like 2-inch. I think it's a little bit too big. So I use 4 of those, 2 on each side, and that works beautifully all winter long.
I just use a honey super without any frames in it because I'm lazy. And so I just take a piece of screen. I make little boxes, but it's not necessary. And you just put a little screen over the inner cover, put your honey super on top, and then just put your cover on. And make sure you put burlap or pine chip, something to absorb the moisture. You can cut them down if you want, but I don't. And they work just fine that way. Just make sure you have a hole in the front or the back of the box to allow for airflow.
Does that hole need to be screened over to keep any
No.
cut out?
No, it's not big. It's only about 1 inch. I just use an inch hole saw, cut a little hole in there, and it just allows the hot moisture to get out of the box. So.
Okay.
I use my Valdi boards also as a method for feeding. So adding dry granular sugar
Yeah.
base also absorbs the moisture and also turns into a nice little candy treat for them to chew on later.
Yeah, I use the cut down super to do dry feeding as well. I make sugar bricks in paper soup bowls and lay them in there, and the bees seem to do real well for that. It's a lot easier than the liquid feeding.
I use the 4-penny method where I spend about 4 pennies per box. So I take 4 pennies and just put 1 penny in each corner of the between the telescope cover and the inner cover, and then like that is just elevated a little bit, and that's how the moisture evaporates in winter.
That's cool.
Okay, I just glued some popsicle sticks on the inside of my telescoping cover to raise it up like that. And then it's in there all the time in the summer, lets out heat also. Okay, any other questions or comments on stuff? So next month's meeting's about winterization. Anybody want to talk about winterization next month? Be a guest speaker? Or just get on and talk?
I can cover again the Valdi boards if you'd like, Jim.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Good. That'd be real good.
I'll be happy to show the winterization method that I use as well.
Good. I like that, the idea that, you know, we're all sharing our different methods, and because we've all been doing it for a little while anyway, and so we know what works. Let's see, other stuff. So how does everybody feel about getting a monthly newsletter, even when we're not having a meeting? You know, so if our meetings end in October and they start again in March, you know, sending out a newsletter in November, December, January, February, just kind of following the beekeeping calendar.
That sounds like a good idea to me, Jim.
Okay.
I think it's
And-
good. I
Might
agree.
not be a bad idea just to go ahead and have meetings, keep people in the habit, even if they're fairly short.
Okay.
Because then you could talk about over the winter, hey, you know, go do a vaporization treatment right at the 1st of January. Because that'll knock down your winter mite count. And one will do then. Or, you know, hey, you should be building your boxes. Here's something you should do to be ready.
Right.
You know,
And sterilizing, you know, boxes you've, you know, pulled down and taken off, and you don't know what hive they're going to go on next year. You know, give them a quick little fire burn from your propane torch. Just scorch them a little bit, make sure they're everything. Yeah, those type of ideas. Well, so anyway, that was something that the board talked about, that it might kind of keep us all a little more connected, because I know in the past years, as winter comes, we just kind of all went our own way, and it's like we were, you know, lucky to get back together in March. So I was thinking it might kind of keep us a little more connected, and especially in this time of COVID, we're all feeling disconnected.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay. Well, all right. So the board didn't have any objections to that, mainly because I said I'd do the newsletter. It's like, oh yeah, okay, good. Though actually, several people have stepped up and said that they help with stuff. Like Steve, thanks so much for sending in that article about
You're welcome.
your solar melter.
You're welcome.
So, you know, that's the kind of stuff we want to promote as a bee club. You know, we may not be able to get out there and do the honey and lavender festival, or we might not get out to schools to talk to kids, or, you know, the Whole Earth Festival down at Idlewild, but I guess we're still trying to stay kind of supporting the bee population.
Absolutely.
Oh, and along those lines, as part of the transfer of the presidency, Michael sent over a couple bags of seed, some alfalfa seed and clover seed. So come this spring, I will have seed, and we'll figure out how to get that out to folks. Okay. So I can't really think of anything else other than next month we'll be meeting on winterization.
Jim, do you want to touch on how we're going to collect membership possibly next year?
Oh, okay. Yeah, great. Okay, so so Mark found when he was setting up the sign up for the picnic, that he could also collect membership dues. And Mark, you want to talk about that?
Sure, I'll talk about that. So basically what we're going to be looking at next year for our membership is we're going to a digital format that'll make the first meeting streamlined. Also, it takes care of issues like this COVID where we can't meet. So we'll have an option to go on the website, and we'll send that out ahead of time to just click on it and you can submit your membership. And possibly we'll even have 2 to 3 year membership options available as well. So it'll be done online, all electronic for those who want to pay that way. And we'll also still accept cash payments for those who like to do that. So it'll make it a little bit easier, and for that start of the year, make it a lot quicker for that first meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, if you guys remember last year, that first meeting, there must have been 25 people lined up at the table that Randy was set up doing the treasurer stuff, you know, and so then he had to write receipts for each person, you know, and I don't think we had a credit card option. It was either cash or check at that point. But so we're thinking that going online, you know, a good 70–80% of the folks will be able to do it online pretty easy. And then we're realizing that a few people don't actually have internet, and they'll show up and they'll bring in, you know, their $25. The thing we do have to realize is that the service, I think takes, I think you said 2.4% service fee. So for a $25 membership, the club will only be getting 23 something. But the board was okay with that. We realized it'd be better to leave it at $25 than raise it to 27, you know, so that you know, the club still got the 25, because I think we're doing okay. We have enough money to buy equipment, to you know, do the things we need to do as a club. Okay, thanks for bringing that up, Deborah. And I think that's about all we talked about at that board meeting, was the electronic payment and the picnic, and I see Stefan just set down a brand new box to spin out. Man. So Stefan, how much honey have you got so far?
I think I'm at about 1,200 pounds, but I left over 1,000 pounds on the hive because I just didn't want to harvest it.
Okay. All right, 1,200 pounds. That's more than a half a ton.
And that was just 2 hives, right, Stefan?
Yeah, I had my 18-foot extension ladder, so I get up to the top.
All right. Well, there you go. That gives us all something to aspire to.
No kidding.
Yeah. Plenty of honey. All right. Well, I can't think of anything else. Anybody have anything?
I got a couple questions.
Oh, sure.
You said the the other club had the dipping, wax dipping box. Is there any way you could reach out and see if they'll let us to kind of participate in that?
Sure.
And then,
and I think they do it in the springtime, but I can send a message. I know a couple of the folks over there. Yeah.
okay, and then the second thing is I know Mike would bring in some burlap sacks. I was wondering if anybody knew where or a cheap way to get some burlap sacks to overwinter.
I got a bunch of ones at a coffee shop here in Minden. I just asked if they had any extra. She gave me probably 10.
Yeah, check
Oh,
your
nice.
coffee houses if you're close to Reno also. A lot of them have the food grade coffee burlap, and some of them might be willing to give you some of those.
That's where Michael said he got his. In fact, I remember having to sweep up green coffee beans from the floor of the library. meeting room after he handed out some of his bags. But yeah, I can send him a message and ask him which coffee roaster he got his at.
You have another question on chat. Maybe
Oh.
Jim or someone else can address that one.
Oh, I like it. How do you get a frame from the hive to the garage or storage room to extract honey without a whole bunch of bees coming with it? There you go, Philippe. Do it fast. That's right.
I
Okay.
use cookie sheets that you
Yeah.
can get at like Resco. Put
Right.
one of your boxes on one cookie sheet, turn the other cookie sheet upside down and put it on the top, and then the bees can't get into it, and they're pretty easy to carry.
Right.
I used those 5-frame nuke boxes, the plastic ones.
Okay. Actually, that's kind of what I use, either a nuke box, which will hold 5, or I just have an empty one. And I like using the deep just because sometimes there's some extra wax hanging on the bottom of a medium frame, and it has honey on it, and it'll get stuff sticky. So if you drop it into a deep to carry it inside, you don't have to worry about it. And like Pam said, have a cover because you're pulling them out one at a time, and I don't want to just be going back and forth to the house. So I've got that box there. I pull the cookie sheet or whatever I'm using as a cover, get that frame in there, cookie sheet back on top. And I always try and shake the bees off of that really, really well. I don't use a bee brush anymore to make sure they're off. I shake them real good, and then I look to see if there's any still crawling. And if there are, I just use my finger and kind of brush them away. I just give them a little tap, and usually they go flying back into the hive. But I haven't got stung yet by flicking them off the frame, and it gets the bee. Sometimes there's a bee that hides out inside some cell or something, and you get it inside, and all of a sudden then you've got bees flying around inside. I always try and catch them in a little plastic Tupperware container, slide a piece of paper in behind them, because I catch them on a window, and I take them back outside and let them go. But do it fast. That's the trick. And try not to get honey on your hands or all over your work area, because they'll be on that too. All right. Anything else? Well, thanks for joining. I'm ready to call it an evening then.
Okay.
Thanks,
Hey,
Jim.
Jim, it's not really a club thing, but if you could call me at some